Bonjour! I hope everyone feel great today. I am Irene Roquero, and for today's video, I will be presenting to you the story of Footnote to Youth by Jose Garcia Villa. The sun was salmon and hazy in the west. Dudong thought to himself he would tell his father about Tiang when he got home, after he had unhitched the carabao from the plow and let it shed and fed it. He was hesitant about saying it, but he wanted his father to know. What he had to say was serious of import, as it would mark as a climacteric in his life. Dudong finally decided to tell it, as the thought came to him and his father might refuse to consider it. His father was a silent, hard-working farmer who chewed a rica nut, which he had learned to do from his mother, Dudong's grandmother. I will tell it to him. The ground was broken up into many fresh ones and fragrant with a stewish earthy smell. Many slender softworms emerged from the forest and then burrowed again deeper into the soil. A short, colorless worm marched blindly to Dudong's foot and crawled calmly over it. Dudong got tickled and shook his foot, flinging the worm into the air. Dudong did not bother to look where it fell, but thought of his age, 17, and he said to himself he was not young anymore. Dudong unhitched a carabao leisurely and gave it a healthy tap on the hip. The beast turned its head to look at him with numb, faithful eyes. Dudong gave it a slight push and the animal walked alongside him to its shed. He placed bundles of grass before it landed. The carabao began to eat. Dudong looked at it without interest. Dudong started homeward, thinking how he would break his news to his father. He wanted to marry. Dudong did. He was 17. He had pimples on his face, and down his upper lip already was dark. This meant he was no longer a boy. He was growing into a man. He was a man. Dudong felt insolent and big at the thought of it, although he was by nature low in stature, thinking himself a man grown. Dudong felt he could do anything. He walked faster, prodded by the thought of his virility. A small angled stone bled his foot, but he dismissed it cursorily. He lifted his leg and looked at the hurt too, and then went on walking. In the cold sundown, he thought wild dreams of himself and Tiang, his girl. She had a small brown face and small black eyes and straight glossy hair. How desirable she was to him. She made him dream even during the day. Dudong tensed with desire and looked at the muscles of his arms. Dirty. This field work was healthy, invigorating, but it begrimed you, smudged you terribly. He turned back the way he had come. Then he marched obliquely to a creek. Dudong stripped himself and laid his clothes, a gray undershirt and red condiment short, on the grass. Then he went into the water, wet his body over, and rubbed it vigorously. He was not longer in bathing. Then he marched homeward again. The bath made him feel cool. It was dusk when he reached home. The petroleum lamp on the ceiling already was lighted, and the low unvarnished square table was set for supper. His parents and he sat down on the floor around the table to eat. They had fried freshwater fish, rice, bananas, and cake sugar. Dudong ate fish and rice, but did not partake of the fruit. The banana were overripe, and when one held them, they felt more fluid than solid. Dudong broke up of a piece of a cake sugar, dipped in it his glass of water and ate it. He got another piece and wanted some more, but he thought of leaving the remainder for his parents. Dudong's mother removed the dishes when they were through and went out to the batalan to wash them. She walked with slow, careful steps, and Dudong wanted to help her carry the dishes out, but he was tired and now felt lazy. He wished as he looked at her that he had a sister who could help his mother in the housework. He pitied her, doing all the housework alone. His father remained in the room, sucking a diseased tooth. It was paining him again. Dudong knew. Dudong had told him often and again to let the town dentist pull it out, but he was afraid. His father was. He did not tell that Dudong, but Dudong guessed it. Afterward, Dudong himself thought that it had a decayed tooth. He would be afraid to go to the dentist. He would not be able any bolder than his father. Dudong said while his mother was out that he was going to marry Tiang. There it was out. He wanted to say an offer which he had done so much thinking. He had said it without any effort at all and without self-consciousness. Dudong felt relief and looked at his father expectantly. The crescent moon outside shed its feeble light into the window, graying and steel black temples of his father. His father looked old now. "I am going to marry Tiang," Dudong said. His father looked at him silently and stopped sucking the broken tooth. The silence became intense and cruel, and Dudong wished his father could suck the troublous tooth again. Dudong was uncomfortable and then became angry because his father kept looking at him without uttering anything. "I will marry Tiang," Dudong repeated. "I will marry Tiang." His father kept gazing at him in inflexible silence, and Dudong fidgeted on his seat. "I asked her last night to marry me, and she said yes. I want your permission. I want it." There was impatient clamor in his voice, an exacting protest and his coldness. This indifference. Dudong looked at his father sorely. He cracked his knuckles one by one, and the little sounds it made broke dully the night stillness. "Must you marry, Dudong?" Dudong resented his father's questions. His father himself had married. Dudong made the quick impassion easy in his mind about selfishness, but later he got confused. "You are very young, Dudong." "I'm 17. That's very young to get married at." "I want to marry. Tiang is a good girl." "Tell your mother," his father said. "You tell her, Totoy." "Dudong, you tell your inay." "You tell her." "All right, Dudong. You will let me marry Tiang?" "Son, if that is your wish, of course." There was a strange, helpless light in his father's eyes. Dudong did not read it, so absorbed was he in himself. Dudong was immensely glad he had asserted himself. He lost his resentment for his father. For a while, he even felt sorry for him about his deceased tooth. Then he confined his mind to dreaming of Tiang and himself. Sweet young dream. Dudong stood in the sweltering noon heat, sweating profusely so that his camisito was damp. He was still as a tree and his thoughts were confused. His mother had told him not to leave the house, but he had left. He wanted to get out of it without clear reason at all. He was afraid. He felt afraid of the house. It had seemed to cage him, to compare his thoughts with severe tyranny. Afraid also of Tiang. Tiang was giving birth in the house. She gave screams that chilled his blood. He did not want her to scream like that. He seemed to be rebuking him. He began to wonder madly if the process of childbirth was really painful. Some women, when they gave birth, did not cry. In a few moments, he would be a father. "Father, father." He whispered a word with awe, with strangeness. He was young, he realized now, contradicting himself of 9 months comfortable. "Your son," people would soon telling him. "Your son, Dudong." Dudong felt tired standing. He sat down on a sawhorse with his feet close together. He looked at his callous toes. Suppose he had 10 children. What made him think that? That was the matter with him? God. He heard his mother's voice from the house. "Come up, Dudong, it is over." Suddenly, he felt terribly embarrassed as he looked at her. Somehow, he was ashamed at his mother of his youthful paternity. It made him feel guilty, as if he had taken something not properly his. He dropped his eyes and pretended to dust the "Dudong!" His mother called again. "Dudong!" He turned to look again and this time saw his father beside his mother. "It is a boy," his father said. He beckoned Dudong to come up. Dudong felt more embarrassed and did not move. What a moment for him. His parents' eyes seemed to pierce him through and he left limp. He wanted to hide from them, to run away. "Dudong, you come up, you come up," his mother said. Dudong did not want to come up and stayed in the sun. "Dudong, Dudong, I'll come up." Dudong traced tremulous steps in the dry parched yard. He ascended the bamboo steps slowly. His heart pounded mercilessly in him. Within, he avoided his parents' eyes. He walked ahead of them so that they should not see his face. He felt guilty and untrue. He felt like crying. His eyes smarted, his chest wanted to burst. He wanted to turn back, to go back to the yard. He wanted somebody to punish him. His father thrust his hand in his and gripped it gently. "Son," his father said, and his mother, "Dudong." How kind were their voices. They flowed into him, making him strong. "Tiang," Dudong said. "She's sleeping, but you go on." His father led him into the small sawali room. Dudong saw Tiang, his girl, wife, asleep on the papag with her black hair soft around her face. He did not want her to look that pale. Dudong wanted to touch her, to push away that stray whip touch her lips. But again, that feeling of embarrassment came over him, and before his parents he did not want to be demonstrative. The hilot was wrapping the child. Dudong heard it cry. The thin voice pierced him clearly. He could not control the swelling of happiness in him. "You give him to me, you give him to me," Dudong said. Blas was not Dudong's only child. Many more children came. For 6 successive years, a new child came along. Dudong did not want any more children, but they came. It seemed the coming of children could not be helped. Dudong got angry with himself sometimes. Tiang did not complain, but the bearing of children told on her. She was shapeless and thin now, even she was young. There was interminable work to be done. Cooking, laundering, the house, the children. She cried sometimes, wishing she had not married. She did not tell Dudong this, not wishing him to dislike her, yet she wished she had not married. Not even Dudong, whom she loved. There has been another suitor, Lucio, older than Dudong by 9 years, and that was why she had chosen Dudong, young Dudong, 17. Lucio had married another after her marriage to Dudong, but he was childless until now. She wondered if she had married Lucio, would she have borne him children? Maybe not, either. That was a better lot. But she loved Dudong, Dudong whom life had made ugly. One night, as he lay beside his wife, he rose and went out of the house. He stood in the moonlight, tired and querulous. He wanted to ask questions and somebody to want to answer him. He wanted to be wise about many things. One of them was why life did not fulfill all the youth's dreams, why it must be so, why one was forsaken after love. Dudong would not find the answer. Maybe the question was not to be answered. It must be so to make youth youth. Youth must be dreamfully sweet, dreamfully sweet. Dudong returned to the house humiliated by himself. He wanted to know a little wisdom, but he was denied it. When Blas was 18, he came home one night very flustered and happy. It was late at night and Tiang and the other children were asleep. Dudong heard Blas' steps, for he could not sleep well of nights. He watched Blas undress in the dark and lie down softly. Blas was restless on his mat and could not sleep. Dudong called him name and asked why he did not go to sleep. Blas said he could not sleep. "You better go to sleep. It is late," Dudong said. Blas raised himself on his elbow and muttered something in a low, flattering voice. Dudong did not answer and tried to sleep. "Itay?" Blas called softly. Dudong stared and asked him what it was. "I am going to marry Tuna. She accepted me tonight." Dudong lay on the red pillow without moving.
Itay, you think it over.
Dudong lay silent.
I love Tona and I want her.
Dudong rose from his mat and told Blas to follow him. They descended to the yard, where everything was still and quiet. The moonlight was cold and white.
You want to marry Tona?
Dudong said. He did not want Blas to marry yet. Blas was very young. The life that would follow marriage would be hard.
Yes. Must you marry?
Blas' voice stilled with resentment.
I'll marry Tona.
Dudong kept silent, hurt.
You have objections, Itay?
Blas asked acridly.
Son, none.
But truly, God, I don't want Blas to marry yet. Not yet. I don't want Blas to marry yet. But he was helpless. He could not do anything. Youth must be triumph now. Love must triumph. Now, afterwards it will be life. As long ago, youth and love did not triumph for Dudong. And then life. Dudong looked wistfully at his young son in the moonlight. He felt extremely sad and sorry for him. What I like about the book is that it gives some reminders to the youth, particularly teenagers nowadays, must think thoroughly and wisely first on what they are about to do. They must not let their hearts take over their minds because it might put them in a misery and suffering when time comes. They must also seek some advices from their parents because they know what's better for them than anyone else. While the thing that I do not like about the book is that part where Dudong let his son repeat the same mistake that he had done before. I would recommend this book mostly to the youth because the message of this story will teach them important values in life that might save them from living a life that they would not want to have. I would also recommend this book to the parents so that they might have more ideas on how they should guide their children and prevent them from having the kind of situation that Dudong has in the story. All in all, I would rate this book 10 out of 10 because it gives meaningful values that could improve one's wisdom, especially to adolescents these days.